Hi, and welcome to Soul. Thanks for joining me this morning. I am Em, your host. And in this podcast, which is going to be short and sweet, I would like to emphasize the significance of alone time in fostering personal growth and self-discovery. Now, I sometimes hear friends say they can't stand being alone. Any moment that they're alone, they'll call someone or try to get out of the house. And then there's the polar opposite, the people who crave it. A lot of times people are going to divide these into two categories. You've got your extroverts and then your introverts. Extroverted people are people who get their energy from others. They prefer to be around people most times, whereas introverted people get their energy from their solitude. Now, with some limits, we are all social beings after all, right? And even though some of us are extroverted, some of us are introverted, it is really important to understand the importance of our solitude or our alone time and how healthy that actually is. And really, beyond healthy, it's actually a very precious thing. And oftentimes it's confused with loneliness. So very quickly, I want to take a step back and explain the difference. On the one hand, you've got alone time, and that is a deliberate choice to disconnect from external influences and embrace solitude. Really to sit down with yourself. So you're not really alone. You are technically by yourself. And I read somewhere someone say, they went out for dinner and it was just them. And a friend goes, why'd you go to dinner alone? And they go, well, I'm not alone. I'm by myself. Whereas when you look at loneliness, right, the latter, that's a sense of isolation. And it's either willingly or unwillingly, right? It could be that you're lonely because, well, no one's around. So what is it about solitude that is so important? Well, embracing solitude allows us to cultivate a deeper understanding of ourselves. It enhances our well-being and our resilience in the face of challenges. So let's look at a few ideas for our solitude or our by myself time. What is it that we can actually do and focus on in that time? Very importantly, for those of you who cannot stand being alone, you can do this even just for 10 minutes, half an hour, ideally maybe an hour a day. For those of you who live alone, you probably do this more often than you think, myself included, but this is really an intentional time in the day. It's not, you're at home, you're making lunch, you're watching TV in the background, but this is intentional time. Now, here are a few things that we can actually do during this intentional time that'll help enhance our well-being. First, and most importantly, is to read. Make time, even if it's 10 minutes of your day, to just read. Could be a blog. Ideally, if it's a book, it's great, right? Fiction, nonfiction, whatever you prefer. It could be a little bit on history. Try to avoid the news, though. Don't let this be a moment where you're catching up on what's going on in the world just in that moment. You can also divide it, right? If it is something that's important for you, then take time to read something that's healthy for you. Again, it could be fiction or nonfiction, but just something that allows you to drift off a little bit out of this world. And then you can go back to reading the news. The idea being, because we're focused on mental health, we want to just take a moment to drift away. Now, it's really important to emphasize that this is quite a privilege, right? But that's why it's important to have it balanced. If you are only focused on what's happened in the world, you are not doing yourself or others a favor, because you are not cultivating your mind in a way that you will have the resilience to keep, going after your other pursuits. The other thing you can do is write. And same thing goes out here. You can write about what's going on in the world. One thing I started doing recently is writing poetry. Why? It just comes to you, right? Sometimes. And it could be anything. Some people I know also like to write, a to-do list. They just like to write how they're feeling. You could do a bit of gratitude journaling. We've spoken so much on this podcast about how important writing is. So really, this is a good moment to do it when you're focusing on yourself. You could be really like your dear diary moment. If you are someone who is not necessarily good with words, but is better with your mind, the other thing you can do is listen. Listen to a podcast, to a TED Talk. One step further, if you also don't feel like listening and you really want to embrace your solitude, then take a moment to meditate. You can put on some music and maybe do a nice sun salutation if you're into yoga. You can also just sit there with your thoughts and try to slowly get them out of the way so you can focus just on your breathing. I myself am also learning how to meditate, so this one I know is a little bit difficult for some. Something else that we can focus on is going to be to declutter. Take a moment when you're there by yourself in your moment of solitude to maybe get something that you wanted to get in order, right? Decluttering could be emptying a shelf or a box that you've had for a while. It could be doing a little bit of cleaning and maybe like going through your thoughts, going through something that you've been having consistent thoughts in your mind running around and just trying to like work through it. So decluttering is really something that's important as well. And it's nice to take a moment when you're by yourself to be able to do that. And again, it could be something in real life, or it could be something emotionally or mentally, or of course, physically. Maybe you need to stretch a little bit, right? And then finally, I want you to treat yourself. Remember, solitude is not about being alone. It's about embracing being by yourself. Right? So when we speak of alone time, we're not saying that we want to be, completely alone. We're not talking about loneliness. We're talking about being by ourselves. Ourselves in this context being myself. So just really embracing that solitude. So what do we mean when we say treat yourself? Well, really just take a moment to do what you wanted to do. It could be taking a long bath. It could be taking one of those showers where you like exfoliate. Of course, be mindful of the water, right? We do want to focus on being sustainable and being good to the environment and to our fellow neighbors who may also need it, or our roommates, flatmates, family who are living with us. But really important to take a step and just do something for you. Could be baking a cake. The other day I decided to bake a cheesecake because I thought, I really want cheesecake and I want to do something to treat myself. If any of you watched Parks and Rec, well, treat yourself. Really, that's the motto over here. So again, embracing solitude, celebrate and prioritize these moments, and really make sure that you understand while you're doing this. We always speak of mind to muscle when we're exercising, same thing here. When we are embracing our solitude, there's a profound impact on our mental and emotional health. I hope you enjoy being by yourself this week, maybe next week, maybe a few minutes, maybe an hour or so. Remember to treat yourself and, of course, step by step, day by day. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you next week on Soul.